So, all right, well, great. Welcome to Stormwater Awareness Week and to this workshop. I have been so excited about having this one. Dusty and I have been talking about doing this particular workshop for some time, maybe even a couple years. And I want to get nostalgic for a little bit. Dusty, this is our 10th anniversary, and not to date you guys at all, but Dusty, I think you were at some of our very first events when we were doing them live in our warehouse. And
yeah, they were great. Yeah, thanks for providing that.
Yeah, and because of COVID and because of just the way the world is right now, we're doing them all online. Maybe someday we'll be back to in-person meetings, but we're glad that each of you are participating today. And Dusty, I have Dusty Giffen with Caltrans and Dave Corfus with TRC, and they're going to be presenting. So Dusty and Dave, why don't you introduce yourselves before we jump into the topic for the day, and tell folks a little bit about yourself, what you do, and your connection to Stormwater and Caltrans.
Hi,
Dusty.
my name's Dusty. I've been with Caltrans for 20-something plus years, in stormwater construction for right around 15 years. So things have changed a lot since I've been doing stormwater and construction. And basically, I'm the liaison between the projects and the water board and assist the contractors and our staff in being in compliance with the CGP and elements of the NPDES statewide permit that we have.
And I'm Dave Corfus, and I've been doing Caltrans construction, stormwater compliance, as well as maintenance, stormwater compliance for 21 years. I started with Valley Cooper and Associates on headquarters contracts statewide, giving the training a long time ago in 2001. And then I went to Brown and Caldwell and gave the construction module trainings in person. Now they're online. And also with maintenance, Caltrans maintenance, stormwater compliance training. And I assist Dusty. So I'm in District 3, assisting Dusty on the team. And as well as I do headquarters IQA, Independence Quality Assurance Inspections in District 4, Districts 1, 2, and 10 as well. So I've seen the permits change over the years.
All right, and welcome to both of you. I think I was on with Amy Cronson one of the last workshops, and to my horror, I realized I've been doing this for almost 30 years. Like, how in the world? But, well, I'm glad you're here. And, you know, Caltrans, it has its own culture to doing stormwater. And to someone who's new to doing stormwater and working with Caltrans, it can be a very different world. And so I'm so glad you're here to talk a little bit about the expectations of stormwater management for construction sites, and also how it works with Caltrans and what the requirements are. Those projects are under the CGP, as I'm sure you're going to cover, but sometimes there's things that look a little bit different or feel a little bit different. So I'm looking forward to hearing about this. So I'm going to give you the rest of the time, and also just for our participants, so you know, we're going to have a Q&A time at the end. And so if you think of a question, a good way to remember it is to put it in the chat and just send it off, and then we'll field those at the end. So if you're looking for your chat button, it's at the bottom of the screen. Just click on that, type in your question, and I'll field it to Dusty and Dave at the end. All right, go ahead and take it.
All righty. So everybody can see the screen, the PowerPoint screen. This is a photograph. Dusty took this picture on a great job. Simmerly Slough, north of Marysville on Highway 70. It's an excellent job. It was in great shape, good compliance, great approach and teamwork from the contractor, the water pollution control manager, and Caltrans resident engineer to make this job look great and phase it really nice as they built the job, huh, Dusty?
Yep, that was a perfect.
It was a great job. And it's almost completed. They've got a little bit more work to do, and then we'll apply for a notice of termination. Okay, So basically, today's presentation topics, we're going to introduce you to the District 3 Construction Stormwater team. And this presentation is how District 3 approaches stormwater compliance under the Caltrans Permit and Swamp, the program. But just remember, everybody, and Dusty will reiterate this, is that no matter what district you work in, every district has its own approach to it. You know, the concepts and everything is pretty much the same, but every district will have its own nuance in managing and approaching stormwater. So you might see different things if you have projects in different districts, okay? But we're going to talk about the emphasis and focus and expectations required from water pollution control managers. We're going to talk about the Caltrans Construction Stormwater Program, the water pollution control manager's requirements and responsibilities per the standard specifications, the latest incarnation of the standard specs. We're going to talk about documentation, the inspection forms. Caltrans has tons of forms and manuals, and so we'll go over that and what we're looking for in them, as well as we'll talk about the construction stormwater program, how district is required to do inspections on your projects, as well as headquarter independence quality assurance inspections that are reported annually to the State Water Board. We'll go over expectations and do a little Q&A. So basically, the District 3 team that Dusty runs, Dusty's the boss, La Jefa, and that she's a team of people that we all work together, and we look at all projects in the whole district, stormwater sweepy jobs under the CGP that disturb an acre or more of soil, as well as water pollution control program projects. Now, the WPCPs are under the Caltrans permit and swamp requirements. So we take the same approach for temporary BMPs as they build those jobs. But basically, Dusty's runs the show. She's been doing it in D3 for a long time. Deanna Arrigo works for SOMAS, and she is the documentation smart sorceress on the computer. So she does a lot of the data entry and uploading in all the sweepy projects in District 3. Chung Fu does all the water pollution control program projects in this district. I assist, Paige Martin assists doing inspections on projects, and Janet Sager does photo logs inspections on the jobs. And that's photos of us in the field, in action. But basically, emphasis and focus is that the water pollution control manager that is either works directly for the contractor that won the job, or is hired as a consultant, as a sub vendor to the prime. Basically, that water pollution control manager, you run point. You are responsible for properly implementing that approved site-specific SWPPP or WPCP for the project. We want to ensure, and our expectation and emphasis is that you as a water pollution control manager and inspector ensure that all temporary BMPs are properly installed to the standard spec and the standard plans, the special provisions, the contract documents, basically. We want to ensure that the documentation that is being filled out and submitted to the RE and to Caltrans is true and accurate and reflective of the site conditions. That we will expect open communication, real-time communication, and consistency with everybody on that project working under for that water pollution control item to obtain and maintain compliance. We want to make sure that all projects that are sweepy jobs do not begin ground disturbing soil activities before we have uploaded it into smarts, those jobs into smarts, and that we get that WDID numbers that we are good to go from the regional board to begin grading and soil disturbing activities on those jobs. That photograph is Highway 49, Labar Meadows project, a risk level 2, challenging risk level 2 project. Basically, the program is that the resident engineer and the construction stormwater coordinator, we will review and comment on the submittals. So the contractor won the job, they have to turn in submittals, and one of them is a sweepy or WPCP, depending on the project. We'll review that and comment on it and do as fast turnaround as we can so the contractor can get to work. But we want a good site-specific plan. We will attend pre-construction meetings and go over the water pollution control items and compliance expectations. And we recommend that the water pollution control manager, that you guys that are hired by the contractor, that you attend those meetings as well. that you guys perform weekly inspections, informal training, and document all the submittals when you do them every week, that you turn them in to the resident engineer so we could put them into category 20 in good time. The spec says that when you do a sweepy inspection, that you turn that report in within 24 hours after the inspection is completed. So we say, hey, every week, at minimum, every week, get the packet of all your documentation in, so we can review it and put it in category 20. That basically that you guys perform pre, during, and post inspections per the spec, per the permit language, that to ensure that the training is done and all the documentation is very thorough and accurate and reflective of site conditions. And that we need to make sure that everything is properly implemented, that SWPPP or WPCP is properly implemented and amended when required and when needed, ahead of the contractor changing things. We want to be ahead of the contractor and getting amendments in on time, and then upload it into Smarts for SWPPP projects. But basically, you guys as water pollution control managers and designated inspectors by the water pollution control manager, you have to do this per the contract documents. Caltrans has to do it as well. The resident engineer will sign an inspector to look at all the items on that project. And one of those items is water pollution control. They're to do inspections too. So we always drive home, get a good working relationship with that assigned inspector on your project and do it together, walk and talk and talk about deficiencies, because they're supposed to review that submittal and then say to the RE, hey, that looks good, go ahead and sign it and put it in the category 20 files.
The most successful projects that we have, it's a collaborative effort. It's the sub or whoever the QSD water pollution control manager is, the contractor, the prime, and our staff and our team that goes out and assists with compliance. And that's to use Summerly Slew, that we had a really great team that collaborated well, because it's a team effort.
It is, definitely. Basically, all these bullets are right out of the standard specifications, the 2018 revised standard specifications. The water pollution control manager's responsibilities, basically you have to be a minimum of a current QSP, qualified stormwater pollution prevention plan practitioner, and you have to attend a 8-hour Caltrans certified water pollution control manager training class. So that's new as of that spec. Revised spec was April of 2020. It's being required on all projects that went out to bid past that date. And so you have to have that. To draft a SWPPP, you still have to be a QSD, current QSD to draft a SWPPP, but to be the manager to implement it, you have to be a QSP current as well as have that certified class. You guys have to read and understand and oversee and implement those site-specific plans. The water pollution control manager can delegate duties, but you have to ensure that you've trained that person, that they've had this class as well, the 8-hour class, that they know what they're looking at and submitting to you as a manager that you're going to review and sign off on that it's true and accurate, then submit it to Caltrans.
Hey, Dave, I'm sorry, yes. Dave, I got a question. It's a good question too. Can a QSD be a water pollution control manager? You mentioned QSP.
Oh, yes. So yes, so a QSD, yes, can be a manager. The minimum current requirement is a current QSP with that 8-hour class. So the QSD can be, but still you need that 8-hour training class per the spec, the revised spec. That you're implementing that site-specific SWPPP or WPCP on the project, that you've read and understand all the contract, the special provisions and pay items. So get the site-specific special provisions for that project and go through all the bid items and the item work, and that you'll know minimum required BMPs on that site-specific project, that those are incorporated into the plans and that you properly are implementing them. And all applicable projects, permits to your project. So there's a lot of projects, both SWPPP and WPCPs, that have other permits that are governing that job. Like if you have work in water or over water, you're going to have a 404 Army Corps permit, a 401 certification from the regional board permit, a Fish and Wildlife 1600 series permit. You got to know those permits and the conditions of those permits that apply to the work on that job. These are all out of the standard specification for water pollution control managers' responsibilities, section 13-101D sub 4 sub C, and all these bullets are right out of the spec. So you are the point of contact. You are responsible for that, implementing that water pollution control work on the job. You are overseeing that installation and maintenance of all that work, that it's done to spec and plan. You have the authority to mobilize crews to make immediate repairs to BMPs that get run over and trashed by the contractor. You have to ensure that all the employees have ongoing weekly informal training. You have to implement and amend the plans to keep them, they're a living, breathing document that need to be amended. You have to keep them current. You have to be at the job site within 2 hours of being contacted. If there's a problem and the RE says, hey, what's going on? Get out here. You have to be there within a 2-hour radius as a spec. And you have to have the authority to stop construction activities that are damaging BMPs or are a threat to water quality objectives for discharges. So if you're hired by a contractor, you got to let them know, thanks for hiring me. Here's our written contract. Put that clause in there. You have to allow me to mobilize crews to fix stuff if you accidentally trash it and there's a potential threat of discharge. So basically, as a manager, Caltrans wants to say, hey, how often are you going to be on site? If you delegate it, how often are you going to be there?
Oh, Dave, you muted yourself.
I didn't hit anything. AI, hold on. Maybe it was a cable.
You're back. You're back.
Again, continued, understand the importance of permit and contract compliance, timely documentation submitted, reflective of site conditions. All deficiencies are listed and completed in the corrective action summaries within the required time frame. So if you look at the specs, there's a spec on deficiencies and how fast they need to be fixed. The current permit, CGP, says you identify a deficiency, you have 72 hours to begin fixing it and then finish as soon as possible under the current permit. The adopted new permit does put a definite time limit on it. And in the Caltrans spec and required text of the site-specific plan, it says you have 5 days to correct that deficiency and submit it to the paperwork to the RE. And then if they are reoccurring deficiencies, there's your weekly informal training topic every week to drive it home to raise the bar of awareness on your job site. But basically inspect together with the Caltrans inspector and teamwork and partner, and then complete as soon as you can areas of a job. And if they phase the work really nicely, finish the areas, put the permit in, and we can submit a change of information to reduce the size of the footprint of that job. Makes it easier. And that's what the water board, the regional boards want to see. Okay, so the REs have 3-week to 1-month look ahead meetings with the contractor. So go to those, say, hey, I want to go to those meetings. So because the contractor works under a critical CPM, critical path method schedule, which change day to day. So they're going to bounce around all over the place. So if a good manager, water pollution control manager, goes to those meetings and then hears where they're going and what they're shifting gears of the schedule, then they can be there and say, hey, you're going to need these BMPs here ahead of that item and during that item work while they jump all over the place. So you want to stay ahead of that schedule, water pollution control schedule.
That's critical, Dave. That's critical for the project to be in compliance, especially as it's growing or shrinking, that the prime is keeping you as a water pollution control manager informed of where their next site or next location or next activity is going to be, because many times there should be perimeter controls or things in place before they go in there and start creating DSA. And sometimes this is one of the areas where it could use a little bit of work. So that collaboration again is really critical.
That's right. And so keeping that water pollution control schedule current. One of the specs for stockpile management says per the schedule, right? And then DSA, active versus inactive disturbed soil area, should be shown on the schedule. From this station to this station, we're grading and blading. It ends on this date. We're moving somewhere else. Well, then within 2 weeks, we want to see yet temporary or permanent erosion control starting to go in on those soil areas. And that's how Similarly was so great at buttoning up and putting permanent in. Closing the loop on those corrective action summaries, and no carryovers. Caltrans doesn't want to see any carryovers week to week to week of the same deficiency that was never fixed. And then properly implementing that plan. So that's your guys' responsibility. You have to gain a real-time relationship with the resident engineer, with the Prime's project manager, and the assigned Caltrans inspector. And then use us as a resource. You know, we're there to help because we do inspections monthly on those sweepy jobs.
We're a resource, but definitely go to your water pollution control manager first.
Yeah.
Sometimes there'll be a little bit of skipping. So.
Yeah. So we're here to help, even though we do inspections and rate a green, yellow, or red rating on a job. We're here to help. And
sometimes there's some complex challenges, and so it requires us to step in and assist with coming up with that plan, right?
Yeah. So if you guys draft, if you're a water pollution control manager for Caltrans job and you're drafting a site-specific SWPPP or WPCP, use the latest manual. Caltrans has a manual for everything and forms for everything. You get on their website, use the latest one. It's the October 2016 manual, but the templates are updated. So a SWPPP template, the latest SWPPP template is March 2021. It's Microsoft Access. You need that Microsoft Access software 2007. The new WPCP template is in both Access as well as FileMaker Pro 12 program, and that is June 2021. So there's the website link. Get on there and download the latest manuals and download the latest templates to use to draft your site-specific plan. The WPCP template, we have new boilerplate templates for certain type of jobs, a chip seal overlay, electrical work only, or paving overlay. There's 7 boilerplates and they're on the website. I think my next slide shows you those. But the WPCP is for anything that disturbs less than an acre of soil. You have to use the WPCP template. Or if it's a job that disturbs 1 to 5 acres and it's one season, it's nowhere near any receiving water, and it can apply for an erosivity waiver through through SMARTS and gets accepted, then use the WPCP template. And then here are the latest boilerplate templates down at the bottom of the slide. If your job is just pavement overlay, use the boilerplate WPCP. A slurry seal, chip seal, use the boilerplate template. Striping, these photographs are for a striping project. Just use that boilerplate template and pull it up and insert your site-specific information, and it speeds up the process of review and comment that you can get to work right away. And these are new. So they're June of 2021. Water pollution control projects, they're not regulated under the CGP, the Construction General Permit, but they are regulated under Caltrans' own NPDES permit and Stormwater Management Plan / program for the whole state, as well as any potential sites, other regulatory permit, a 401 certification, a Fish and Wildlife Stream Bank Alteration Agreement, or a Army Corps permit. Or if you're up in Tahoe, a TRPA requirement, agency permit. So know your contract documents and know what every permit applies to your project. So basically, the SWPPP, what we want to see is common deficiencies. When we review plans, we see they're not site specific. There's not detailed B&P narratives. It should be a standalone document that you can give to someone that knows nothing about temporary B&Ps, and they can read the narrative and look at the drawing and the fact sheets and reference material to say, okay, I know where this goes. I know what it's for. So you always want to take that who, what, when, where, why, how approach in drafting site-specific B&P narratives for that job site. Reference the drawings, cross-reference it. Everything should run smoothly through that plan. Include verbiage from the B&P fact sheets and the standard specs, but use it and massage it to be site specific to that job. So you're going to cutting pasting is fine, but you got to proofread it before you submit it. All right. So So make it site specific, but yeah, definitely do that. And so that it minimizes the amount of comments and the turnaround time, because contractors just really want to, turn and burn, basically. Let's roll. So cross-check that information from section to section. Detailed narratives, we can't drive that home enough. But yeah, definitely review it. Use the buddy system if you're drafting it with someone that you work with to read it, get more set of eyes on it. And then you're going to turn that into the prime. Tell the prime, hey, you read it before you give it to Caltrans IRE to see if we've missed anything. So we can't stress that enough. So more common deficiencies is your certification, the QSD that drafted it. They put that in an appendix and it's expired. So you print out your current certifications to submit with those plans. Use the proper template. Use the most recent template because you don't want to do all this work and then the first comment gets kicked back and say, well, put everything in the most current template. So you want to make sure you use that. We don't like to see things to be determined. No, you're drafting it. You determine it now, and then it can be amended. It's you make the decision, you commit to it. Then as they start working, then amendments can be made to these living, breathing document plans, both SWPPs and WPCPs. A lot of times we see missing information, receiving waters, other permits aren't listed. Again, to be determined, we don't want the prime subs or vendors, they're not listed in there with contacts. Laboratory, you have to list a certified lab for potentially if non-visible pollutant sampling is triggered, we need that contact of that lab where the bottle set and cooler is going to be sent to with the appropriate non-visible pollutants selected in a chain of custody. We didn't verify that those are listed and they're on board as well when drafting these plans. It doesn't identify all the BMPs that were selected, or it talks about BMPs that aren't even related to the project. So if there's work over water, but it's a chip seal overlay job and there's no bridge anywhere, right? So again, cutting and pasting is fine, but proofread to make sure it is site specific and go through those special provisions and all the items of work and what temporary BMPs relate to those items of work and make it very site specific. Because we've seen it all over our 20+ years of reviewing plans that, the jobs in District 3 up in Tahoe area or in Truckee, but yet they're referencing a weather station in LA. And we've seen it. So basically, make it good and site specific. And there's some pictures of work over water. Schedule, make sure the schedule, okay, in the SWPPP and the WPCP sections of those plans, it describes what is needed in the schedule and in the drawings. I think it's section 500.5 of the SWPPP and 500.6 of the SWPPP from my memory of what needs to be in those schedules and drawings. So we review those and make sure the schedule has everything. Work windows from other permits, start dates, end dates, BMPs, all the items that are, if you use a critical path method schedule, you can use tweak that to add the temporary BMPs along with those items.
Can I say real quick, Dave?
Yeah.
One thing that you don't have to tweak your CPM to do that. We in District 3 have a pretty scaled back version of that we offer to anybody that asks to get a schedule, because sometimes the BMPs get lost in all of the items in a CPM or something like that, and they can get skewed and moved around. So if you guys work in our area, we have a very scaled back version that you can utilize in our area that is very specific to BMPs and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's all forms that we've seen, but I was just saying, if you use that to tweak.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely we want a good schedule, an accurate schedule, start, end dates. Again, you guys as managers drafting these plans, especially SWPPs, for the risk level determination. If the schedules change and blow out, it could kick you into a different risk level for SWPPP jobs. On the drawings, we got to make sure that everything that you've chosen is representative on the drawing, have a good legend of symbols, and then all the BMP, temporary BMPs shown on the drawings surface waters, flow arrows, topography, all staging and laydown yards within the right of way. And if they're outside of the right of way, solely for the job, show those on the drawings and what BMPs go with the laydown staging area, laydown yards. If you guys have to use an off the right of way staging area or yard solely for a job, before that happens, Caltrans, you need to submit to the resident engineer a written authorization from the property owner to the contractors, allowing them contractor to use the private property and holding Caltrans harmless of any and all liabilities before it happens, before they use the staging area. So basically for deficiencies, we see a lot of generalization. We don't like that. In general, depending on to be determined, a BMP narrative is one sentence. We're going to do this per fact sheet WM5. Done. So no, we want more site-specific narrative of BMPs. And a big one is as directed by the RE. We see that a lot. No, as directed by you, the Water Pollution Control Manager, because if you didn't draft it, you're implementing it. So never write in a plan as directed by the RE. The contractor won the bid and they're going to build the job how they want to build the job to the contract document. The only time Caltrans will direct work by the RE directs work is under force account. And those are emergency jobs and very rarely do we do work under force account work. Right, Dusty?
Correct.
All right. So basically proofread before you submit. Make them site specific, proofread it, have many sets of eyes on it after you're happy with it if you're drafting these. Check that you've chosen all the BMPs against the special provisions and the bid items and all the tables in the templates that you've checked have a narrative for it. Draft detailed narratives. Discuss maintenance of the BMPs in the narrative, but be site specific. Yes.
We have a question.
We do.
Who prepares water pollution control drawings? Caltrans or the QSD Water Pollution Control Manager? That's a great question. It can vary a little bit. Technically, most of the state will not provide you those. Those should be coming from the contract documents. You can utilize those and modify them as you feel needed. I know in the private sector, that's pretty common to provide stormwater drawings with temporary BMPs and permanent, things like that. We don't do that typically in Caltrans. I think there are some districts that do a little bit of that. Dave, do you know?
Yeah, I think some do, but mainly it's up to the Water Pollution Control Manager drafting that plan to create the drawings. And I've seen them use layout drawings from the plans of the job, drainage drawings or layout to put their BMPs in, but it's up to the manager to create those, whether they're good at CAD or by hand, real clean, to create their drawings of all the BMPs, sampling locations, and yards, etc.
Yeah.
Good question.
Good question.
I can't read the title of my slide, Dusty, but
water pollution control and SWPPP and water pollution control amendments.
Oh, it's amendment time.
Yeah.
So basically, these plans are living, breathing documents that you guys as managers need to be on top of and ahead of if a condition arises where we need to have an amendment to that plan before it happens. We always seem to chase the tiger by its tail, where you go out there and like, what? You've opened up where? We need amendment for that, right? So we stay ahead of it. But they are required, they're living, breathing documents. They are required when significant changes occur in the scope of work or you're changing people and personnel and BMPs. We need those amendments because we have to, for SWPPP jobs, upload them into smarts. If they're major, they could be a change of information. This applies too for WPCPs. We want them living, breathing, and amend them to show the site conditions ahead of time. But yeah, definitely, here's some bullets of when amendments are required. Whenever there's a change of construction operation that can affect discharges and pollutants to surface waters or into municipal separate storm drain systems, MS4 systems. We build all our jobs through cities, counties, municipalities that have their own NPDES phase 1 or 2 permit. So if we're changing conditions where we're going to start discharging into their system in other locations, we need amendments. Here's some examples. Adding an equipment, storage, or laydown yard that's new, it has to be amended before it happens because Caltrans Environmental needs to clear it, right? So archaeological, bugs and bunnies, they need to say, okay, that's okay, you're good to go. Before it happens, because we see a lot of times it happens and they're like, oh my God, there's the Douglas iris or the red-legged tree frog you just squashed, right? We don't want that. Adding or replacing subcontractors, replacing a water pollution control manager, adding new BMPs that you chose you didn't need, but now you're going to change a BMP, add a BMP. Changes in amounts of disturbed soil area and locations and moving sampling locations. We need amendments. So that a process is that you want to do it before. So go to those monthly look ahead scheduling meetings. You're going to find out if you need, find out where they're going to go and where they're going to work. Just you could be ahead of an amendment for sure. It's another good
Or
reason.
at a minimum, have your prime send you the look ahead schedule so you can peek at it and have questions. Hey, you know, a lot of times it's in water work, summertime stuff. It's a lot of like in water work, dewatering. Some of those things need extra permits too. So they take time.
Yep. So, and then you have an amendment CEM form. We have a form for everything. So you're going to do an amendment log and an amendment, a CEM 2008 and 2009 form, get those submitted, reviewed, and commented on before it happens in the field. But basically, that's what we want. You need to amend it in writing before it happens, ideally, or we're playing catch up and we're surprised in the field when we go do our review. But unless there's an imminent threat of discharge, then a verbal approval is required, and then the paperwork can follow if you need something to happen right away. Right, Dusty? I think that's a picture.
Oh, sorry, I was just seeing the question. A discharge to a DI would require an amendment. Technically, we shouldn't be discharging.
Well, wait, is a
I'm not sure
discharge
about
to
this question.
to a DI that wasn't already listed is protected in a project footprint and it's a new
Potentially,
location?
yeah. So
Yeah,
in
if
that
it's-
case, you would add it, right?
Yeah, because currently in the drawings and in the plan, you're protecting drain inlets that would be shown on the drawings, and then you're cool. But if it's a new area, a new system that wasn't there, then yes.
Yeah.
And there's a picture
Hopefully
of
that
Dusty
answered.
talking to the water board over there.
Oh yeah, Marty.
Marty Hartzell. That's an old picture.
Yeah.
So
it
then
is.
we're talking about all this stuff. We need documentation. Caltrans has a manual and a form for everything. And when the first stormwater first came out from headquarters, how many Dusty was 100 forms or
well,
something crazy?
it was like
50,
I think it was like 40 or 50 when the
50
new permit,
forms.
the old
With
new
the-
permit came out.
Right. So now we're trying to streamline and reduce
Yeah.
the forms and as best we can. But basically, you guys have to do weekly inspections year-round, quarterly non-stormwater inspections for sweepy projects, pre-storm, during extended storms every 24 hours, post-qualifying rain event inspection forms, annual reporting, NAL exceedances, all different types of reporting is on these forms. And so here's a little image of all the
Cheat sheet.
different CEM, cheat sheet of CEM forms, but you can find them all on the Caltrans website and always find the most current one. If you're in Lake Tahoe, the Tahoe form will have a T next to it. So on the upper left corner, and this is the CEM 2030, which is your weekly inspection form, and you can check a box. It's weekly, pre, during, post, quarterly on the cover sheet. You can check that and what is it and fill it out. I think this is 9 pages long. But it says up in the left CEM 2030. If it's Tahoe, there'd be a T by it. But you can download these forms from the website, and then you fill out each, as you do an inspection, you fill these out. I'm old school. I take notes and I fill my reports out after my notes, and I take pictures on an old camera. But you fill out every page and that you document it. And the spec says when you do these reports, you got to turn it into the RE within 24 hours, but we allow once a week. But again, you're going to go through each page and you're going to check the box and draft narratives and locations of what you observe on this inspection form. If you find deficiencies, you note it on this form and number it, but you're going to transfer that to a corrective action summary CEM 2035, which we're going to get to. But again, use this form. You could take it with you or do it after your inspection, but fill it out properly. Any comments? So a lot of times we review category 20 paperwork, and it's a lot of check boxes. Minimal narrative. Hey, write narrative, you know, cover your assets, you know, basically, and draft good site-specific narratives that don't check the box with no narrative. Everything's fine, nothing to see here. You know, if you find deficiencies, write them down and then transfer them.
I think there's a bit of a misnomer that if you sometimes we'll go to jobs and there will be no deficiencies and it's a sweepy job and we're a little perplexed. And they go, well, when I saw it each day, I cleaned it up. And I said, okay, but if you don't have any documented, it really kind of gives the perception that you're not actually looking. So if you find something and you fix it that day, go ahead and give yourself credit. Hey, I saw blah, blah, the DI needed to be cleaned or DI protection fixed. Document it and show that you fixed it that same day, because if you have nothing, it really gives the perception that you weren't looking.
Yeah, great point, Dusty.
So you don't get dinged for finding things wrong.
Right. So you want to transfer all of those deficiencies on the 2035. So every form will have a signature page that you sign it and that is true and accurate and reflective. But you're going to put all the deficiency corrective actions on the CEM 2035 and number them. And that when you do that and turn it in, you have 5 days to fix that and sign off that it's been fixed and turn that in. So a lot of times we see carryovers. You know, there's only like a couple things put down and there's carryovers. And then we come out and inspect them like, well, I found 25 things and they only have 2. What's going on? Let's inspect together and be on the same page. That's why it's also good too to partner with the assigned Caltrans inspector and walk and talk and say, here's what I see, what do you see? And so it makes it good. Thorough, accurate, and reflective. But basically you're doing that and you're dating when the observation of the finding was observed on the inspection, and that you want to close that loop, sign off that it's been fixed within those 5 days or prior to a forecasted rain event, whichever's first, which is in the Tahoe permit and spec language as well. And I think the new permit's going to state that as well. Again, you look at weather, look for potential discharge. You're going to prioritize as a water pollution control manager, you're going to prioritize your deficiencies and getting them fixed, taking into account the time of year and the weather, and is there a potential threat of discharge? And remember, no carryovers. If you fix it, but then you start seeing the same issues, even though you fixed it, there's your weekly informal training topic to drive home to the labor and the trades on the job to say, hey, you guys aren't getting this. Let's get it together.
Hey, Dave, can I interject a question? I actually put it in the chat, but I know in the ideal world, we don't want carryovers.
Yeah.
But sometimes the fix is going to take longer.
Sure.
They need to get the erosion control contractor out there to spray something down, or there's a scheduling issue, or there's other things preventing it from happening. So it is quite common. We see carryovers happening. So how should the numbering work? How does that SEM 2035 work?
Okay, that's a John, that's a great topic and a great point. Document that. So if something like that scheduling, this needs to be sprayed and stabilized, and this subcontractor is booked and we can't get them out to this date, you write that down to say this is on the schedule to be sprayed at this time, right? So then like, okay, we're cool with that. Or this big piece of equipment is broken down in place on the job. We can't move it and we're waiting on a part to fix it. But these are all the B&Ps in place, ready and waiting for that to be fixed and then signed off on. So again, it's the documentation of the situation and the detail in the documentation stating, hey, this is it. On this date, it's going to happen. Here are the B&Ps in place in the meantime. And that's why with temporary erosion control, you can use other temporary cover, rolled erosion. We're going to use this in lieu of this until it comes out and gets sprayed.
So each week, do you want to see a brand new form with brand new numbering? Or do we say, well, they haven't addressed number 5, 6, and 7 yet, and that stays 5, 6, and 7 until it's addressed?
John, what we've done, like we've had some really big jobs, like the Lincoln bypass was really long. So I like to be flexible and allow the team, which is the RE and the prime and the water pollution control plan, water pollution control manager, sorry, to collaborate and come up with something that works for their team. As long as we're in compliance with the idea of this, we can come up with a way that works for each project, in my opinion. I don't want to pigeonhole you into something, you know what I mean? So I just encourage you to talk with that group and you guys come up with a plan that works for you guys. And it can, that way it's flexible.
Right, and so that could work, keeping it the same number or doing something different and changing the number. Yep.
And sometimes on these big jobs, they'll do like a month and a finding for that month. And then that kind of has you can track it that way.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah.
So basically
Dave, you had one other question. I don't know if it's okay if we answer them as we go. Who signs the corrective action form? Walter. I think Walter, he's our he works for us, if it's the same Walter. He's probably coming from a slightly different perspective because they do permit encroachment permits. But for what we're talking about under the CGP, that would be the QSD and
the water pollution control manager.
Yeah, manager. And then the RE would sign off when they agree with that they're complete.
Mm-hmm.
And the contractor.
Yes.
Yeah. Is he on there too? I can't remember because there's so many different
Yes.
signatures.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, it has usually the signature page will have the resident engineer sign, the contractor, and the water pollution control manager. But they all have to be signed. And it's funny because all these CEM forms have the instructions on the last page. The instructions aren't on the first page, it's the last page. So go to the last page, read the instructions, and then fill out the CEM.
If you have questions.
Notice of discharges. This CEM 2061 is for notice of discharges. So when you do it every week, you're doing an inspection all year round. You're doing pre-storm during extended rain events every 24 hours. If you see a discharge or you see evidence of a discharge, we have to fill out the 2061 notice of discharge form. If you see a discharge happening, a stormwater discharge or a non-stormwater discharge into surface water, immediately shut the operation down, immediately try to stop the discharge from occurring and notify the resident engineer verbally immediately. Fill the form out and then you submit it to us in the required time frame, and we will come out and look at that, because if it's a reportable discharge, which we will determine, the coordinators, and then we will report the discharge. If it's not reportable, we'll make that decision and then we'll just document it and it'll go in our annual report.
Dave.
Yes.
You have 10 more slides and you have 11 minutes.
Yeah, here we go. So you properly fill these babies out and stop discharges. Now, remember, if you have a discharge on sweepy job, if we exceed an NAL or an NEL, an action level or limit, and an NAL exceedance is not non-compliance. It means take action. NELs have now been moved to ATS system discharges, risk level 3 surface discharge, then potentially we could be out of compliance with permits. But every situation has a CEM form that you have to fill out, sign, and get to the RE within the required time frame. Annual reporting is CEM 2075. You're going to summarize all of your sample data, your inspections throughout the year. You fill out this CEM 2075. You turn it into Caltrans to us by July 15th. We will review it, comment on it. Once it's good, we upload it into Smarts on Sweepy Jobs by September 1st of each year. So winterization plan. So there was a revised spec that they used to say amend the sweepy on sweepy jobs every year in July. Now the revised spec is, hey, give us a winterization plan September 15th. So what on your ongoing sweepy job, what are you going to do to winterize that job? So we've been reviewing those and uploading them into smarts for all the sweepy jobs currently. And this is a good revised spec. Dusty, I can't, my
Oh,
title.
Construction Compliance Evaluation Program, SEEP, project
Okay.
reviews, HQ and district.
Okay, so basically, everybody, you guys as water pollution control managers and inspectors, your quality assurance level 1. The contractor's building the job, their quality control. You guys are boots on the ground every week inspecting your quality assurance level 1. District, when Dusty and I and the team go out and give you a red, yellow, green, we're doing our reviews once a month per the Caltrans permit and swamp as a quality assurance level 2. Headquarters does quarterly or sometimes a couple times a year inspections, independent quality assurance level 3 that gets summarized statewide in all 12 districts and summarized in a report given to the state board for construction projects and maintenance operations and facilities. So it's a layered compliance quality assurance program for compliance with the permit that we are doing. So when you see us out there and you get a red, yellow, green, we're looking at the document review and the temporary BMPs, and we inspect to the standard spec and plan, T drawings, the permit language, and the contract documentation, and we reference it. This is out per this. This isn't maintained per this. And you guys should inspect the same way, inspect to the contract language. And this is headquarter IQAs. So when we do it, it's you have 5 days to fix it. When headquarters comes out and does a review, they won't give you a red, yellow, green. They'll take a picture. They'll say this finding or deficiency is out per the permit language or the spec language. You have 2 weeks to take a picture of the same vantage point and turn it in. You put it in the report, and the RE has to turn it into headquarters. And I do those in district. I do those in districts 4, 1, 2, and 10. And so here's our review, our SEPR report. You'll see a documentation as a yellow, and then the field implementation and temporary BMPs as a red. But we list them and we take pictures, and then we reference this the permit language or the spec language or the T drawings.
And that real quick, everybody, that's something that mostly I think districts 1 through 4 do. That's kind of something that we do specifically. Other districts may do it a little bit different format, but they should be doing some sort of an inspection.
Yeah. So basically, yeah, the North region is districts 1, 2, and 3, and District 4. We're very similar with that form. But yeah, SoCal's different. But they're supposed to be doing it for the permit. Photo logs are for projects, Dusty, that are sweepy jobs that the RE might require us to come every couple of weeks to take pictures to see how they're doing. And also we do these also for notice of termination on sweepy jobs too. When the job's ready we have photos to submit for NOT.
I think it's something a little unique for District 3, and we utilize it for projects that have a little higher risk or are very active getting into the fall and winter times.
Expectations, you guys are water pollution control managers. You're going to be water pollution control inspectors on these Caltrans projects. Use us as a resource to help you because we want all the jobs to be very good, safe, clean, on time, on budget, and in compliance with all applicable permits. Use us as a resource. But here's what we expect from you guys. Read your contract document, inspect to that standard and language, have site-specific, ensure compliance, have site-specific plans. All your documentation is accurate, thorough, and reflective of site conditions. When jobs get sideways, it's Caltrans' responsibility, the RE, to ensure compliance through an enforcement response program. But we want consistent, good, open dialogue communication real time between the teams of people with water pollution control on each job. So RYFCD, read your friendly contract documents, and you can use whatever you want for F, but read your contract documents and inspect to them, and you're going to be fine. use the toolbox available. Caltrans has so many great manuals and websites, water quality planning tool. It wrote a BMP toolbox. These are some websites for you to check out. And Caltrans has done tons of studies and pilot studies on BMP materials and soil types and slope inclinations that you can make a great plan for where you're at, where the project is in the state. All right. Hey, look at that. We got 4 minutes.
All right. Well, thank
any
you, Dave.
questions?
You did great. And Dusty, thank you. Well, we only have a few minutes, but let's open up to questions. So let's see. I think there's only one maybe we haven't answered in the chat. And can the NPDS coordinator sign for non-departmental activity?
Dusty.
I know, that one's a tricky one. I think it's Walter. He's, I think he does encroachment permits for us. So that's kind of a little bit different animal than the CGP. That's where we kind of get a little more creative and have to call our NPDS group and ask them how to proceed, because they, our NPDS group is the head of all of stormwater, whether it's under the MS4 permit or the swamp or the CGP. Technically, they're kind of who we go to. So I would direct that question more towards them. We do mostly construction activities. So I would reach out to my NPDS coordinator, ask them that.
Now, that brings up kind of I think maybe a related question is there are projects that are maybe municipal sponsored, but on Caltrans right-of-ways. How are those handled? I know many times we're using the same form, same SWIP template. How are they similar or even different?
Oh, that's a great
Yeah.
question.
And you got 30 seconds to answer it.
Okay,
Dusty,
super
let me
fast.
start.
Oh,
Let me
you go?
start, Dusty.
Okay.
Okay, so a lot of that is Caltrans oversight project. So that project is owned by the city, county, or municipality. Caltrans is only, they'll have an encroachment permit drafted, pulled. And so Caltrans is only required, construction is only required what's in the right of way. The rest of that job is outside of the right of way. And that permit is pulled by that owner. And so they're under their own WDID number. Our job is to look at what's in the right of way and say you're in or out of compliance to our spec and permit in the right of way.
Now, are we going to experience many of the same things you just talked about? Are those projects going to get to CCEPs and that type of thing?
For CCEPs, they used to. It ebbs and flows.
It ebbs and flows.
It ends up, so some years they do those. Other times headquarters said, no, don't do those anymore. So it comes and goes. So yes and no.
Okay, so maybe a little bit different experience, but really kind of follow the same guidance and you can't go wrong then.
Yeah, and a lot of those city, counties, and municipal jobs use the Caltrans spec for their whole job, right?
Yeah.
Not just the right of way, they're using the forms and everything for their whole project. So it's up to that city, county, municipality inspector that is working for the owner to use the same approach.
Which
Way
means,
past 30 seconds.
which means you probably also need to have that water pollution control manager in place.
And
All
the
right.
training, yes.
All right. Well, this has been wonderful. We'll have to get you guys to come back at some point and dive a little deeper. But I already can think of a lot of people I'm going to send this out as a link to because it was very, very informative. So thank you, Dusty. Thank you, Dave. If people have questions, how do they get a hold of you?
Oh.
Wait, we didn't put our name or
We didn't
number
put
on
our-
it.
You want to put
Maybe
it in
that
the
was
chat?
intentional. Okay.
Type it in the
Text-
chat, your
type it in,
email or
Dusty's-
something.
Dusty's personal cell phone. Put it in there.
Or just your email if they have questions
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
just a website.
Yeah.
So again, thank you. Thank you for being a part of Stormwater Awareness Week. And I want to thank each one of you participants for being a part of this class. Fortunately, we need to log out here real soon. So we got another class at 3:15, part 2 of our QSP, Mike Lewis's, and a water pollution control manager talking about BMPs and kick the BMPs. So that's at 3:15. We'll see you then. Thank you again, Dusty and Dave.
Thank you.
See ya.
All right.
Thank you.